If you grew up in the early 2000s, chances were that you either played Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, or one of the other various card games. But the one that I remember having a chokehold on me the most was Pokemon. Something about catching these little creatures and making them battle drew me in as a little kid, but playing them over and over, learning where certain Pokemon spawned, always made them a little repetitive in my mind. So, to get around this, I decided to play through my favorite game in the franchise, Pokemon Black, but with one little change. I completely randomized every Pokemon. This includes my starters, all wild Pokemon, every trainer's team, as well as every time my Pokemon evolved. But on top of that, I added some extra rules. I can't heal in battle. If a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead, and I also can't catch duplicates. So with these rules established and my sanity slipping, let's see if we can beat the Pokemon Black randomizer. We start off in our room talking to our friend Sharon, wondering what's taking our other friend Bianca so long. She eventually enters and apologizes for being late, and after some discussion, they both agree to let us choose first. Luckily, we get a Volcarona. They each choose their starters, and Bianca challenges us to a battle. She sends out an Exploud, and unfortunately knocks us out with a couple of uproars, destroying my room in the process. Next up is Sharon, who sends out a Ryu Nicholas. Thankfully, this battle goes slightly better for us as we knock it out, just barely beating him. We then go downstairs to show our mom our new Pokemon, leaving right after to meet the professor. We exit the lab and see our mom standing there. She hands all of us town maps and walks back home to clean up our destroyed room. Meeting with the professor on Route 1, she shows us how to catch a Pokemon and then heads towards the next city. We head off with Sharon and Bianca to the next town, stopping only to catch a Staryu that we named Straizo. As soon as we leave the grass, the professor calls us and says to meet her at the Poke Center. We meet up with her and she shows us around the new Poke Centers. We exit just in time to see a protest by Team Plasma. They're saying something about liberating Pokemon, but the only thing on our mind is beating up other people's Pokemon for money. Eventually, they leave, and some weird green-haired guy challenges us to a battle. He sends out a Sunkern, and it gets absolutely decimated by a single Ember from Volcarona. He walks off, leaving us to travel Route 2, where our mom stops us again to give us a pair of running shoes, which would be cool if it wasn't immediately overshadowed by us catching a Reshiram that we named Freya. Just before we can enter the next city, Bianca stops us, and we have another fight. She has a Uxie and an Archeops that we take out with a single Dragon Rage each from Reshiram. Heading into Stryton City, we heal up and immediately go to the trainer school to battle Sharon, but he's just as easy as Bianca thanks to Reshiram. We then talk to one of the gym leaders, who tells us we should challenge the gym. Before that, we head east to pick up a free Pokemon that turns out to be a Poliwhirl that we name Wham. So we train up our Pokemon and battle our way to the gym leaders. We end up fighting Cillian, who starts off by sending out a Dustox while we send out Volcarona. We hit him with an Ember, just barely keeping him alive as he hits us with Confusion, which actually confuses us. He heals up his Dustox, but we're able to hit through Confusion, knocking it out. Next, he sends out Bonsly, so we throw out Starmie. We're able to hit him with 2 water guns, knocking it out and winning our first gym badge. We're then abducted by the professor's assistant, who asks us to head east to the Dream Yard so we can collect some Dream Mist. We head over and meet Bianca, cutting down a tree blocking our path, as we see 2 Team Plasma Grunts beating a Munna trying to get the Dream Mist. We battle them, and after beating them up, their leader Getsus appears and forces them to retreat. Then a Musharna appears and thanks us for saving her child by giving us some of her Dream Mist. With our mission complete, we head northwest to Route 3, where Sharon challenges us to another battle. We take out his Tangrowth with a couple of Fire Fangs from Reshiram, and then swap into Poliwhirl takes out his Zoroark with the Water Gun. He heals up our Pokemon just in time to see 2 Team Plasma Grunts running by, followed by Bianca and a child. Bianca tells us that the Grunt stole one of the little girl's Pokemon, so me and Sharon followed them into a cave to try and get it back. Being backed into a corner, they challenge us to a Pokemon battle. They send out a Persian and a Drifloon, who are easily defeated by Reshiram and Sharon's Tangrowth. Sharon then leaves to give the Pokemon back, and we follow. The little girl gives us some heal balls as thanks. We then follow Route 3 until we get to Nacrene City, so we heal up and head towards the gym, where our green-haired friend stops us just outside for a battle. He sends out an Espeon that Volcarona takes out with an Ember. His next Pokemon is Crocodile, so we swap into Starmie, taking it out with a single Water Gun. He then sends in a Clang, so we swap in Reshiram, who melts it with a Fire Fang. We head into the gym, where we're able to complete the gym puzzle and challenge Lenora. Our first Pokemon is a Carnivine, who's super weak to Volcarona's Ember, so it goes down in one hit. Then she sends out Poliwag, so we send out Starmie, who tackles it until it goes down, getting us our second gym badge. Heading out, we watch as Team Plasma steals the skull of a fossilized Dragonite. Chasing after them, we run into Berg, the 3rd gym leader. Lenora tells him what happened and he says he'll help us get the skull back. We all head west towards Pinwheel Forest, battling all the Team Plasma Grunts, only stopping to catch a Noctowl that we named Knuckles. Unfortunately, overall Corona is taken out by a Rock Blast from one of the Team Plasma Grunts. We're able to reach the end of the forest and beat the last grunt, retrieving the dragon skull. With the job well done and only one casualty, we head north out of the forest and across the Sky Arrow Bridge into Castelia City. We see Sharon come out of the gym talking about how he beat the gym leader, but as we try and go in, Berg exits telling us to meet him at the docks. We head down to the docks where we see Berg, Iris, and Bianca talking. They tell us that Bianca got one of her Pokemon stolen and we need to find it. We follow Berg into the city where we see a group of Team Plasma grunts talking with Getsis. He tells us about 2 dragon Pokemon before returning Bianca's Pokemon and leaving. Finally, we're able to enter the gym and challenge Berg. He sends out a Minun, who unfortunately kills Starmie, so we send out Reshiram next to get revenge. He then sends out a Castform and then a Yamask, who we burn to a crisp, winning the 3rd badge. After throwing Starmie into the death box, we head north towards Route 4, where we meet up with Sharon, who challenges us to yet another battle. But unfortunately, he didn't learn from our last one. He starts by throwing out a Fracture that we defeat with a few confusions from Noctowl. Then he sends out a Pineco, so we swap into Reshiram and one-shot it with Flamethrower. Next, he sends out a Lotad that we take out with some body slams from Poliwhirl. His final Pokemon is Slacking, who's taken down with a couple Flamethrowers from Reshiram. We continue north into Nimbasa City, where we see an old man getting harassed by Team Plasma. We make quick work of their Pokemon, and the old man thanks us by giving us a new bike. We meet Bianca outside of the music theater where her dad shows up trying to convince her to return home and let go of her dreams of traveling with Pokemon. Suddenly, the gym leader Elisa shows up and tells her dad off. She tries to change Bianca's dad's mind and he walks away. We then head south to the amusement park where we're stopped by N, who takes us on the Ferris wheel. After stepping off, he immediately challenges us to a battle, but it's no issue as we crisp up all of his Pokemon with some flamethrowers. He then tells us that if we want to stop him, we have to beat him at the Pokemon League. So we travel east into Route 16 in Lost Thorn Forest and catch a Machamp that we named Chip, and a Pidove that we named Chuckles. We immediately evolve into a Lombre. Feeling confident, we head towards the gym and steamroll our way through Elisa's gym trainers, challenging her at the end. The battle starts with Elisa sending out an Emolga as we send out Knuckles, where we're able to hit it with the confusion, actually confusing it. We try to knock it out with a second confusion, but it hits through and lands a spark, paralyzing Knuckles. Not wanting him to die, we swap into Chip and knock out Emolga with a Seismic Toss. She then throws out Bagon, who we hit with another Seismic Toss, before switching out to Lombre to hit it with the Bubble Beam, and then swapping out again to Reshiram to finish it off with Flamethrower. Her last Pokemon is Floatzel, who takes a Flamethrower to the face before dying to its burn, earning us our 4th gym badge. Leaving west into Route 5, Sharon challenges us again, but we make short work of his team. We then meet Alder, the Pokemon League champion, who lowers the bridge between Nimbasa and Driftvale City. Before heading over the bridge, we catch a Golett that we name Gippy. Heading over the bridge, we encounter a Turtwig that we catch and name Teacup, who gets sent into our box. Entering Driftvale City, we are stopped by the 5th gym leader, Clay, who blames us for some Team Plasma grunts escaping custody. He tells us that we need to catch them and they're most likely hiding in the cold storage. Before heading down, we swap Turtwig out for Lombre and immediately evolve him into an Unpheasant. We meet with Sharon at the cold storage and sneak our way in the shipping container where Team Plasma is plotting their next move. We plow through the grunts and Clay comes in, arresting all of them, finally doing something useful. Exiting the cold storage, we head into the gym where we see Getsis confronting Clay. He asks nicely for Clay to let his grunts go, and because adults are useless in Pokemon, he actually does let him go for some reason. After Getsis leaves, we head into the gym and make our way down to Clay. His first Pokemon is Gyarados, and Chip puts up a good fight, but he's almost knocked out, so we throw in Unpheasant, who's able to take it out with a Mega Drain. Unfortunately, his next Pokemon is a Giratina. We put up a good fight, almost defeating it, but unfortunately, we get hit with the Slash and Unpheasant goes down. So we send out Reshiram to finish it off with a Dragon Rage. His final Pokemon is a Nidoran, who we take out with a Flamethrower, winning our 5th gym badge. We throw Unpheasant into the Death Box, and head out of the city into Chargestone Cave. The Professor and Bianca follow us through as we take out some trainers and a couple Team Plasma grunts, meeting up with N again, who is just as easy to beat as always. We enter Mistralton City, where we put Lombre in our party and meet Skylar, the next gym leader. She says something about a sick Pokemon on top of a tower and says to meet her there, so we head north, battling our way to the top of the tower, only stopping to catch an Illumis. Catching up with Skyla, she tells us that she already took care of it and that we should meet her back at her gym. So we ring a bell and fly back to challenge her. We have no issues except for the fact that we immediately lose Illumis, but we don't worry too much about that and challenge Skyla. She starts off by sending out a Sandslash, who we get to about half before having to swap out into Lombre, who gets hit with a Crush Claw and gets knocked out. So we swap into Reshiram and knock it out with a Flamethrower. Her next Pokemon is a Croconaw, who we take out with 2 Dragon Breaths, and her final Pokemon is a Krabby, who goes down the same way, awarding us the 6th gym badge. Exiting the gym, we throw Lotad into the Death Box and head northeast into Twist Mountain, but we eventually made it out, replacing our Golett that fainted with a Bayleaf named Snips that we evolve into Ampharos. Entering Icarus City, City, we are stopped by the professor's father who tells us about the Dragon Spiral Tower. We head north into the grass to catch Cusco the Machop, who we evolve into Herdier, and then a Zoroark. Heading into the gym, it's as easy to get through as all the previous ones were. Challenging Bryson, he starts off with an Infernape as we send out Reshiram. He hits us with a close combat and we throw some rocks at him, landing a critical and getting all of our stats boosted as he faints. His next Pokemon is a Monferno, who goes down to an Ancient Power and a Dragon Breath. His final Pokemon, Prinplup, also falls to an Ancient Power and a Flamethrower, awarding us our 7th badge. Exiting the gym, we are told by some ninjas that N wants to meet us at the top of Dragon Spiral Tower. So we head over and meet N at the top, demolishing all the Team Plasma grunts in our way, and catching a Grovyle that we named Leo on the way, that evolves into a Charmander, and then a Hoppip, and then an Oddish, and then a Timber, and then a Luxio, and then a Nidoran, and finally into Darmanitan. At the top, N shows off his cool dragon Pokemon, and then talks about how he wants to awaken the other dragon, as if I haven't been sweeping his team this entire game with it. Then he flies off, just leaving us there. So we meet everyone outside, and Alder walks up telling us that Team Plasma is headed to the Relic Castle in the desert because of its connection to the legendary dragons. So like the good hero we are, we storm in and immediately lose Chip to a random Team Plasma Grunts Executor. With revenge on my mind, I roll through the rest of the grunts and see Alder battling Getsus. He's able to flee, however, and Alder takes us outside, where we get a call from the professor telling us how we need to head over to Nakreen City. As we arrive, we throw Chip into the death box and replace him with an Ivysaur named Dr. Eep we caught that ends up evolving into Swellow. We head to the museum and see everyone standing there as the professor and Lenora walk out, giving us the white stone that holds Reshiram. They tell us it can only be awoken by a trainer who believes in truth, whatever that means. So we throw it in the bottom of our bag to stay warm and head back to Icarus City, and across Route 8 until Bianca stops us for a battle. She starts by sending out Fione as we send out Zoroark. We get hit with the Bubble Beam, and we hit it with a Vital Throw, taking it down to yellow. We then swap out to Noctowl, who takes a second Bubble Beam, as we hit it with Confusion, almost defeating it. But unfortunately, we're hit with Supersonic. Bianca uses a full restore, so we hit it with another Confusion and then use Fly, bringing it down to yellow again. Going for the kill, we use Fly one more time, but Hail brings Fione down low enough for Bianca to heal again. So we swap out to Ampharos and hit it with an Electro Ball and a Volt Switch, knocking it out and swapping into Darmanitan. She then sends out Crustle, who knocks out Darmanitan with a Slash and a Rock Throw. We send out Zoroark to try and outspeed with a low kick, but Crustle hits us with another Rock Throw, knocking us out. We send in Reshiram next, and it knocks out Crustle with a Dragon Breath. Reshiram then hits her Togepi and Ninjask with a Flamethrower, knocking them both out. So we continue east across Tube Line Bridge, where we're stopped by more ninjas who bring us to Getsus. He congratulates us on making it this far and tells us that he wants to remove Pokemon from their trainers so that Team Plasma can take over the world. Leaving us on the bridge, we continue into Route 9, catching a Mamoswine named Maddie. Heading into Opelucid City, we're stopped by Alder, who's watching his Team Plasmas protesting again. After they leave, we walk up to Iris and Drayden, the 8th gym leader. They talk about how Team Plasma needs to be stopped, and then Drayden tells us that we should challenge his gym. To get ready, we catch a Litwick. Thankfully, it evolves into a slightly better Pokemon, Charizard. The battle with Drayden went as expected. He starts out with a Pichu that gets taken out with an Earthquake from Mamoswine. His next Pokemon, Dunsparce, gets hit by Ice Fang and another Earthquake, taking it out. His last Pokemon is a second Dunsparce, who we hit with an Ice Fang before swapping into Charizard. He heals up, and we hit him with an Inferno, dropping him to about half and getting the burn. Unfortunately, he keeps roosting every time we hit him, so we swap into Swellow, who I thought would be able to do more damage to him. It isn't enough though, so we swap into Reshiram, who hits him with the Flamethrower, and the burn knocks him out, winning us our final gym badge. We meet with the professor outside, who gives us a Master Ball as a reward for beating all of the gym leaders. Before we enter Victory Road, Sharon challenges us to one last battle. He starts off with Lantern, and we send out Mamoswine. All it takes is one Earthquake to take it out, but his next Pokemon is Kyogre, and this is where the game starts beating me down for using Reshiram so much. His Kyogre proceeds to knock out Ampharos, Charizard, and Noctowl before we're able to finish it off with an Aerial Ace from Swellow. His third Pokemon is Gigalith, who goes down to a single Earthquake from Mamoswine, and his last Pokemon is Azumarill, who goes down to 2 Earthquakes. Sharon then walks off, rethinking his entire life up to this point. Knowing that I can't survive with only 3 Pokemon, we go off in search of some new helpers. We run into a Pidgey that we catch and evolve into Swadloon, Latios that we catch and name Squeaky, and then finally a Cresselia who we named the Hub. With a full team, we're finally ready for the Pokemon League. We heal up our Pokemon one final time and step in. We challenge Chantal first, and she starts off by throwing out a Sentret, who's taken out by a single fly from Swellow. Her next Pokemon, Deerling, goes down the same way. We then swap out to Reshiram to knock her Duskull out with an Ancient Power, and her final Pokemon, Shelmet, gets a nice Flamethrower to the face as it's knocked out. We move on to Marshall, whose first Pokemon is Woobat, so we hit it with a super effective Ice Fang, taking it out. His Oddish goes down to another Ice Fang, and his Rhyhorn gets knocked out by an Earthquake. His last Pokemon is Dodrio, so we swap in Reshiram and knock it out with an Ancient Power and Flamethrower. We then move on to Grimsley, who was always the easiest Elite Four for me as a kid. He sends out Lionoon, and we knock it out with 2 Ice Fangs. He then sends out Apom, who we almost knock out with an Earthquake, before swapping to Latios, knocking it out with a Surf. We knock out Teddiursa with a Luster Purge, and then swap into Reshiram to knock out Ninjask with the Flamethrower. The only Elite Four member we have left is Caitlyn, who actually gave me the most trouble as a kid. She sends out Loudred, who gets knocked out with an Earthquake from Mamoswine. Our next Pokemon is Entei, so we swap into Latios to knock it out with some Surfs. She then sends out Heatran, so we hit it with another Surf, but it takes us down to red with a Crunch. Luckily, we're able to outspeed with a second Surf and knock it out. We swap Reshiram in to take care of her last Pokemon Slacking, and we're able to knock it out with 2 more Flamethrowers. With the Elite Four taken care of, we head up to face the champion. We're too late though, because we see N standing in front of Alder, talking about how he's finally gotten strong enough to make his dreams come true. Just then, a floating palace appears and launches stairs into the Pokemon League. N tells us to meet at the top to try and stop him. So we follow him, stopping to drop off Swellow. Entering the final room, we see N sitting atop his throne. We start walking towards each other, and the white stone that we threw in our bag starts to shine. It rises into the air, and Reshiram emerges, forcing us into a battle. But the Pokemon that appears isn't Reshiram, it's actually a Giratina. So we catch it with the Master Ball that the professor gave us, and with a legendary Pokemon in our party, N says it's finally time for our final battle. He sends out a Bonsly that we knock out with 2 Fusion Flares. Then he throws in Gigalith, so we send out Swaloon to take a Stone Edge, allowing us to freely swap into Latios and knock it out with 2 Surfs. His 3rd and 4th Pokemon also go down to Surfs from Latios, but his 5th Pokemon Granbull uses Roar, forcing us to swap into Giratina, who hits it with a super effective Aura Sphere, and then throws out his final Pokemon, a Garbodor, who we hit with 2 Shadow Forces, finally crushing his dreams. Getsis then walks in, berating N for being weak and forcing us into yet another battle. We take out his 1st and 2nd Pokemon, a Medicham, and Trubbish with Fusion Flares from Reshiram. His 3rd Pokemon is Gigalith, just like N. And just like N, it's taken out without a second thought. His 4th Pokemon Swablu is even easier and gets taken out with an Ice Fang from Mamoswine. His next Pokemon is where we start to struggle a little, or at least we would have if Mamoswine wasn't an absolute unit. Darkrai spends 3 turns using Double Team, and Mamoswine is able to hit it with 3 Ice Fangs without missing, knocking it out and forcing Getsis into his final Pokemon Pikachu. So we hit it with an Earthquake, defeating Getsis and finally putting an end to Team Plasma, for like 2 years at least. With the battle lost, Getsis starts throwing a fit until Alder walks in and arrests him, and then tells us to follow our dreams before flying off on Zekrom.